As you can probably tell from my dress sense, I don't place a lot of importance on colour, but I do find it interesting that with no apparent discussion or collusion on the subject, video games have developed their own unique colour language. Isn't it interesting how, in the world of live service gear grinding, that green means uncommon, purple means rare, and orange means super rare? Why is that always the case? Who decided that? I don't remember participating in a vote, but this is just scratching the surface. Interface designers have long been able to employ specific colours to instantly convey certain concepts to the player with no additional explanation required. So let's go through and define what every colour has come to mean in video games. I'd wager the device surveyed every single person watching this on what video game element they associate with the colour red. About 95% of you would say health, and only because 4% of you are rabid contrarians, and the other 1% would zone out or die before I'm finished talking. You know damn well that health bars are red. Yeah, some games try to be different. Sometimes green makes a spirited play for health thanks to the association with first aid kits. Sometimes troublemakers like Castlevania try to pull off using red hearts for weapon energy, but we all know they're out on a limb. There's a simple reasoning behind this. You know when you lose health? You know that funny liquid that comes out of you when that happens? What colour is it? Yeah, I think we're done here. Green has historically been all over the place, much like bogies on the underside of a school desk. As I said, it's sometimes taken health duties. If you see green numbers appear over your health bar, one tends to assume that health is being restored. But counterintuitively, green is also shorthand for poison, especially if it's in gaseous form or leaking out of a pipe or a barrel with a radiation symbol on the front. Also, if we're dealing with a color-coded elemental damage system like in Pokemon or Persona, green has been known to fill in as poison, acid, plant, and even wind on occasion, presumably because water/ice already took blue. In more recent years, thanks in part to landmark trendsetters like Dark Souls and Zelda Breath of the Wild, green has enjoyed a comfortable niche as stamina, which again makes sense if you think about it. Stamina, energy, green energy, renewable power, and is also the colour of the Mountain Dew you drink to get it back. Blue is an interesting one. In a fantasy setting, blue is inevitably used for the mana bar because of its association with mysticism and deep, weighty, faraway concepts like the eerie majesty of the ocean, the distant sky, the gentle moonlight. Also, in contrast to red, it's a colour not usually found in natural biology. Eviscerate some poor bastard in a grassy meadow, and blue is the colour you're least likely to see. But in non-magical settings, I'd say blue is most often associated with shields and armour, like the powered shield in Halo. Again, probably because of its calming effect and contrast with red. If bullets are hitting and you're still seeing blue, then you can relax, the shield's holding. If the blue goes away and the red jam starts appearing around the edges of your vision, that's when you need to worry. When it's not taking over poison duties because green is busy being stamina somewhere, purple tends to be video game shorthand for dark. Normally black would be the obvious pick for dark, but if a game has a generally colourful tone or wants you to be able to actually see things, it'll usually add a purple tint. Nintendo do this a lot. I'm specifically thinking of Metroid Prime 2, where you had the ability to switch from the light world to the dark world. Except dark, in this context, apparently meant looks like the part of Wonka's chocolate factory where he grows the inflation fetish berries. Now we're getting to the broader world of video game culture because brown is a colour more associated with an era than with game mechanics, namely the PS3 360 era of, quote, gritty realism, when the preponderance of World War II settings and comically over-serious tones, inherited from games like Quake and Gears of War, serious in the take me seriously mum, this Nine Inch Nails logo on my folder is part of who I am sense of the word, meant everything had to look like it was made of chocolate and cement dust, like the part of Wonka's factory where he stashes the bodies of the shitty kids. As regular viewers will know, magenta is the term I use for a more recent trend in mainstream video games that I suspect came about as a direct response to the brown era. It refers to games such as Overwatch, Fortnite, and Bleeding Edge that present a punky, free-spirited, bohemian aesthetic, despite being cynical, corporate, committee-designed, sexless, overly polished guff. Typically, this is brought across with an exaggerated Disney-Pixar-adjacent art style with lots of smug facial expressions, trendy music, trailers with lots of freeze frames on characters as their names appear at an angle in an edgy font, and splashes of bright neon colour, including, but not limited to, magenta. Expect at least one character to have magenta hair, and bonus points if it's a partial buzz cut. Actually, I've noticed a growing trend in indie games for characters with cyan hair, reference Sea of Stars, Pepper Grinder, and Hyper Light Breaker, which may well be a response to magenta. So now all we need is a trend for yellow, and we've got everything we need to refill a colour printer. Oh, speaking of, Yellow is hard to pin down. You could make an argument for it representing money in some contexts, because it's the colour of gold coins, and its growing popularity as a colour of spray paint to put on ledges indicates that it has some connections to utility in people's minds. But for me, the more interesting recurring association, and you're going to have to come out on a limb with me here, is manipulating the space-time continuum. In games where some kind of wondrous substance is used for teleportation/time travel purposes, my observation has been that said substance has a good chance of being yellow. Examples: Half-Life, the anomalous crystal that causes the resonance cascade and creates portals to Zen, is yellow. Singularity, the mysterious element E99 that fuels the time manipulation device, is yellow. Timeshift, the player's prototype time-traveling suit, has prominent glowing yellow bits, as seen on the cover art. Prince of Persia, the titular Sands of Time, are yellow because it's sand. Idiot. Red Dead Redemption, using the Deadeye ability that slows time down to a crawl, causes the screen to become tinted with yellow. I've no idea how this association came about. It goes way back. In obscure early LucasArts adventure game Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders, a yellow crystal is used for teleportation. And if, like me, you're of a fanciful bent, you might wonder if the yellow minerals from Zack McCracken, Half-Life, Singularity, and Prince of Persia might all be the same thing. One of these days I should dredge up my old abandoned project to create a video game equivalent of the Walls-Newton family, or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen style massive crossover canon. It was always fun to think about, and I'd love to share my theories. Does the medic from Team Fortress 2 wear red and white flowing garments because he's a former member of the Assassin Order? Is the ghost-killing flashlight from Alan Wake related to the ghost-killing flashlight from Luigi's Mansion, or the ghost-killing camera flash from Fatal Frame? Do they all employ the same chemical process derived from the ghost-killing root beer from Monkey Island? Sorry, I got overexcited there. Do let us know in the comments if you can think of any video game colour associations I missed, so you can post, "Ooh, surprised he forgot to mention ... like the smug little twat you are." Oh, and also if you can figure out the connection between Master Belch and the Great Mighty Pooh.
This video is sponsored by Ground Branch, the uncompromising thinking man's FPS from one of the developers behind the original Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon games. Live out your tactical fantasy through 8-player co-op multiplayer, complete with proximity chat and in-depth character and weapon customization. Don't have 7 friends to play with? Well, head on down to your local grocery store and start asking strangers in the produce aisle. Also, while you're there, please check to see if the heirloom tomatoes are still on sale. Those juicy little guys are so delicious. Ground Branch is here to put the tactical back into tactical shooter, and the big version 1034 update makes the experience even better thanks to map improvements, additional playable characters, and the new prone stance. So what are you waiting for? Start shouting things like "Breach," "Suppressing Fire," and "I've got your 6" to all your new produce aisle pals today in Ground Branch. Available now on Steam in early access.